chafing is a mind state, right? Everyone gets the chafing. You just need to look. You just need to look into it from the right angle.
So can we agree that it shouldn't actually be called dry suit, but maybe slightly damp suit?
3/4 or half a litre of drool and spit out of the rebreather that it's collected over the previous 2 or 3 hours. Welcome to Dive Around the World, the podcast that brings you stories, insights, and adventure from beneath the surface. Each episode, we explore the people, places, and passion that make diving more than just a sport.
Welcome back to the Dive Around the World podcast. Today we're going to talk about equipment that saves us, annoys us, and occasionally gaslights us. Obviously here we have Memo and Adam as always, and myself, Corinna. And
Hey, everybody.
we're going to go rapid fire. Start right away with our biggest equipment pet peeves. We'll start, Adam. You in XR, you talk very equipment heavy.
Yeah, we're equipment heavy, right? Everything heavy in weight and heavy in usage, of course. But I think the main one, and everybody will feel the same, recreational or XR, is the dry suit thing. Like, dry suit isn't actually an equipment; it's a state of mind. You're never really dry. You have to believe you're dry, and that makes you dry, because you never really are. No matter how new, how expensive, how cool it is, you literally put that thing on, you get in the water and you're like, I'm so dry, and then you get out and you're not dry at all. So yeah, it's a state of mind, a dry suit. Luckily, it'd be super difficult to free dive in a dry suit. So I think Memo's got the best of both worlds there. But yeah, dry suits are probably the biggest thing. You know, they're either too tight, too big, too small. Can't get enough undersuit. Can get too much undersuit underneath. And so yeah, that's the most one, because comfort is the key, right? If you're comfortable in what you're wearing, it makes your diving so much more enjoyable. So I've been through a lot of dry suits.
I agree. You know, fun fact, did you know that the body, you can actually not feel wet. You can just feel temperature differences. So if it gets a little bit wet.
So what is considered as wet? Like more than knee deep inside the wet dry suit filled with water is wet, or?
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is, of course, because you sort of lay in a flat position prone, the lowest part of your body is like your lower stomach and around your lower region. So that's where all the water tends to pool, unfortunately. So yeah, it's always the lower part of your body that ends up wet. And that's the interesting thing about a dry suit, because obviously it's under some small amount of vacuum, and it creates lots of little channels in the fabric. It means if you have a leak in your elbow, you could end up with water on your belly. And you think, I don't have a wet elbow, but I have a wet stomach. And you can't figure out why. And the answer is because it's tracking through the inside of the suit to the lowest point. And then you're forever searching for that leak everywhere. Yeah, they're a pain.
It's like roof insulation, you know?
It
leaks from somewhere, but shows up inside the house at another corner, yeah.
It's water, right? Water always finds the path of least resistance somewhere. It gets everywhere.
So can we agree that it shouldn't actually be called dry suit, but maybe slightly damp suit?
Well, that's the other thing, right? So in diving, in wetsuits, we have a thing called a semi-dry, right? Which is the stupidest title ever, because you're either wet or you're not, right? How are you semi-dry? Can you be semi-wet as well? So I don't understand the semi-wet, semi-dry. But a dry suit, the dry suit is the closest thing to semi-dry.
It's your mind. It's how you condition your vision, you know? You have to be optimistic inside that suit, yeah.
Yeah, we're
Semi-dry. Best of both worlds.
We're going to need to come to you freedivers for some mind control. Yeah, it's control over your body. Yeah, dry suits is the one for me. Memo, what about the freediving wetsuits? I've seen loads of struggling with soap and with various different lubricants and stuff to get in a freediving suit, and they're super. You have to be very careful with them, right? Because they're open cell.
Well, I mean, depends on the suit, of course, but the high-end versions without lining on the outside or on the inside, of course, they are kind of like untreated neoprene, right? It's kind of like, imagine the outside, kind of like whatever it's touching the mold, it becomes a little bit shiny and a little bit more durable to elements, but that's it. But this kind of gives you the best flexibility, most comfort, but there's a ceremony behind it. So when you're wearing it, Yeah, you have to be patient. You have to start breathing, and you have to catch your zen. You have to use, kind of a lubricant. I mean, it has the name on it. Any lubricant works. Like baby oil works, shampoo works, you name it, it works.
It's a
But
good
you have
mindset
to
for
have
life,
it.
that, right? More lubricant, the better. Keep that.
Exactly like that. I mean, just yesterday, I was having a chat with a major wetsuit manufacturer, and he suggested me using this little powder now, kind of like you mix it with water and it becomes this insanely lubricant solution. And then it becomes really easy to put the suit on and to
Okay.
position the suit on your body, because this kind of wetsuits they don't wear out, they wear in. Like they shape with your body if you position themselves on you properly with the temperature of your body and with the pressure. Then you start seeing, like the places it sits on your body, so it becomes kind of like the second it becomes like the second skin. But we are not always patient, right? So even myself, it's not uncommon to see me ripping a wetsuit every now and then,
I've
trying
watched
to.
I watched a few Instagram reels of people like doing funny get into wetsuits, hopping around for 15 minutes on one leg with half a leg in, and then 3 people trying to help somebody get there, because you have integrated hoods as well sometimes, right? And so trying to get
Yeah,
your
always. Yeah.
arms in, and when your head's like giving birth, I guess.
Yeah.
It's all about shoulder flexibility, guys. You need flexible shoulders. Otherwise, you cannot be a freediver in a freediving wetsuit. And that not for freediving, just to get into the wetsuit.
But for beginners, it's a major trauma. We have to accept that, especially if they are using these open cell inside wetsuits without proper lubrication. Long hair, for example, it catches the neoprene so bad. So the instructor is always waiting like a cat, to put their head out of the opening as soon as possible. Otherwise, you see the mouth sucking the neoprene like, and then the panic kicks in. So it's.
But I guess that builds your CO2 tolerance, right? Just leave them in the wetsuit a little bit longer. CO2 tolerance will build up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny
Learn
story,
to
right?
kill with panic.
I don't know if this will make it into the podcast, but obviously British divers are renowned for being quite cheap, right? They'll use a piece of equipment till it falls to bits. They'll find a solution that's like not the right solution but works because it's cheap. And so when we have neoprene wrist seals on some of the suits, or neoprene neck seals, quite often you'll use a lubricant. Now, the manufacturers sell their own branded lubricants, which of course is just a normal lubricant inside a suit. But the lubricant that they tend to use is they go and buy huge tubs of cow udder lubricant, for milking cows, because it's super cheap, and you can buy it by like the 5-liter bucket. And so quite often you go to a dive boat in the UK and there'll be some guy with a 5-liter bucket of lubricant come on board to get in his neck seal or his wrist seal, and it says, it's like Farmville cow lubricant written on it. It's the weirdest thing.
Amazing.
Maybe, that is, but I mean, it makes sense though. And it should also be fairly friendly on the skin, because I've got a bit more of a sensitive skin. So a lot of the like lubricants and like some of the stuff people use, I just get rashes. And it's not good if it's all over you.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is with the ears. If you're using shampoo, even if it is pH neutral, it starts washing your earwax. And at some point, the ears become really sensitive to infection. So this is kind of like the number one issue with regular freedivers.
I've seen the freedivers in Dahab trying not to use soap because they quite often get in the suit in the water, like in the ocean, and so they're trying to put like reef-safe lubricants so they can get in the suits there. So that's maybe a good environmental thing, isn't it? That you think about what you're using to get in your suit. You don't want to be like getting in a suit and then loads of bubbles forming all around you in the ocean.
Yeah, it was a thing before in Dahab, like people were foaming up as they walk on the beach, like still like bubbles coming up from the hood and here and there, yeah.
It's not just the environment, it's also your own skin. If you just put soap, like you see people using dish soap and things, if you put that on, it's going to end up all over your skin and your entire skin just dries out and it like starts to crack open. Especially if you do it all
Corinna,
the time.
Tell us about the swim wetsuits. I think they are kind of like looking the most innocent, but quite evil when it comes to, put them on at the right position and everything.
Yeah, the thing about swim wetsuits, again, they've got the same layer on the outside, and you cannot have nails or anything. And they have to be sitting 100% correctly around the shoulders. If you don't put them on properly, then you don't get your shoulder flexibility out of it. And then swimming becomes impossible. You really can't use your full range of motion. And they can be so tricky because also you want them to be tight enough, right? The sizing is also really difficult. You need them to be tight enough. Basically, you can still get in, but you should barely get in. And then,
I bought an open water swim wetsuit.
100%.
And when I picked it up, I bought an open water swim wetsuit. And when I picked it up, I was like, "This is for a child. Like, how am I meant to get in? How am I meant to get in this thing?" I got in eventually, but you're right. If it's not in the right place, you get like super chafing and doesn't do up. Yeah, it's there. You got to get it on correctly.
I think chafing is.
Chafing is one of the worst things,
right? Everyone gets the chafing. You just need to look. You just need to look from the right angle. Yeah.
Okay, it's a positive thing.
Yeah,
it's like war scars.
Have enough Vaseline. That's it.
You know what worries me the most? I think like whether you're putting on a dry suit or you're putting on a swimsuit or you're putting on a freediving wetsuit, at least you can stand on one leg, right? Imagine putting on a mermaid tail. That really weirds me out. Like you strap your feet together and then you've got to try and put on a mermaid. Like how the hell do you not fall over and end up with I'd be like walking around with a squash nose.
So the only way to put on a mermaid tail is flat on the floor. There is no way to do it standing. There is absolutely no way. And you have to be flat on the floor because you have to partially sit, and then the other half of putting it on is where you lie down, lift your bum. It's a workout, and especially silicone tails. Silicone tails, it can take like some mermaids that have like a proper fitted silicone tail, it can take you like half an hour to get in.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And do you normally do that on the pool side so you can get straight in, or can you like hop around once you're in it?
No, there's no way of moving. You either have a very strong person around you to carry you to wherever you have to get, or you do it right by the wood.
Okay.
They call it a
like
mermaid
a fish
wrangler.
out of water. Mermaid wrangler. Is that a specialty? Do we offer that?
Amazing.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
New specialty idea.
Yeah. Yes. Wetsuits, dry suits. I think that is and how about wetsuit and dry suit fit? I had this back in the days when I was still a kid. My dad is this instructor, a very vain guy, Turkish guy. And in his head, he always fit in a Mars size 3 wetsuit. That's not big for a man, right? No matter how much his belly was growing, the wetsuit was getting thinner and thinner. He would only buy a Mars size 3 wetsuit.
5 millimeters in the upper, 5 millimeters in the lower body, 3 millimeters around the waist.
Exactly. 1.5 eventually.
Yeah, fits.
As long as you can
really
still fit in the same size.
Yeah, fit's super important. We do a lot of fitting people for dry suits in technical diving, obviously, and you need a lot of range of movement to be able to reach back and shut down your twin set, and do a lot of like stage handling. So you need a mobility. Because of that, the fit of a dry suit is really important. Most of the community is now moving to what we call tri-laminate dry suits, which is like a non-flexible material. So the material itself doesn't stretch. Because of that, you need excess room in the suit that allow the movement because you can't fight the fabric. So when you're standing in like a normal standing position, people expect it to fit like, like an Italian Gucci suit or something. So they're expecting it to be body tight, fitted. And of course, the second they go in the water, like, uh-oh, now I can't actually move. If you want to lift your arm, you're going to need fabric. You're going to need excess fabric. So when we stand for a picture in your dry suit, it looks like you look like you're wearing a potato sack. But of course, you go into the water and your arms are up, your back's bent, your legs are bent, your knees are up, and you're in like a bent position. Then, of course, it should fit in that position. So, yeah, I'm trying to fit people for dry suits is always interesting because they always come back and say, it doesn't fit me. And I say, well, show me a photo. And they show me a photo of them stood up with excess material. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's exactly how it should be. We are not free divers or swimmers. We should not be in skin tight equipment. Leave that to the people who are fit. The technical divers generally.
Are you saying this because a lot of technical divers might have a belly?
Well, yeah, our sport's about doing nothing for 5 to 6 hours at a time, where your sports are, doing as, well, Memo's is about doing not so much actually, but it requires a huge amount of fitness. But the idea is for us to do very little. So that the better you get at it, the less you do. So it becomes less of a sport, more of a hobby, the better you get at it.
One thing I do have to say, you were talking about semi-dry wetsuits earlier. I think those are those are like what fall under my list of pet peeves. I don't like them in any way. I've always hated them. They give you less mobility, most of them. You swim in your own soup, that is also. So I always will go. Me personally, I take a freediving wetsuit even when I go scuba diving, because they are effectively a lot warmer than a lot of the scuba wetsuits, or I go straight for dry suit. That is my personal opinion.
They always say, don't they, what do you guys feel about peeing in wetsuits? There's 2 types of divers, right? Those who pee in their wetsuits and those who lie about it.
Yeah.
So it is, semi-dry wetsuit is not the place. Semi-dry wetsuit is not the place.
And this is exactly why one of the only things I will not wear rental is a wetsuit. And booties.
I used to be quite picky with that. And we were using these external catheters, kind of like a condom with a hose on it. So we were peeing literally outside the wetsuit. So throughout my, dive center years, I was always using that because I don't like peeing in the suit. But lately I'm not using it. It's because I think I'm getting older and lazier. That's the reason.
Also peeing more.
I mean, you just need to drink more water if you don't want to stink, right? That's the solution, quick solution.
Yeah, the same for technical diving, right? We need to be super hydrated. Obviously, we'll talk about it in a bit, but hyperhydration isn't a good thing in any of our activities, right? But you need to be well hydrated for technical diving. And we do the same thing because you're in a dry suit most of the time and you're doing extended dives. Then, of course, you need a way to keep your hydration level high. And, of course, you need a way to go to the bathroom. So most dry suits are fitted with P valves now. So you can do the same through a dry suit, which means we don't have to worry about that whole issue. So, yeah, we leave the peeing in the wetsuit to the free divers and the recreational divers.
Do you use
the P valves for ladies or not?
Yeah, we use it. No, we got loads of solutions. There's 5 or 6 different solutions for women inside dry suits as well. All work quite well. So you have to find a solution that works for you, but they work pretty well, just as well as the men's generally, if it's fitted correctly. So it is an important thing to talk about that, the women wearing dry suits do research it properly, because quite often they'll underhydrate deliberately to solve the problem, but it's super bad from a decompression point of view. So we need everybody to avoid that wherever they can. But yeah, we take a lot of electrolytes. So we take the electrolyte pouches, like sports drinks with electrolyte, and we drink those during the decompression generally.
There's obviously a big difference between diving open circuit and closed circuit, right? Because, in the rebreather, the air is a bit more humid. Do you feel that with the amount of hydration you need to take?
Yeah, hugely. Although it offsets itself, because a rebreather allows you to do much longer dives, you'll just be in the water longer, so you will dehydrate even with the rebreather. Whereas open circuit, you're limited by the gas you can carry. So, but open circuit, if you're breathing gas from a good source, it should have almost zero moisture in the gas. And because of that, it is going to dry you out really, really quickly. And then, if you dive with a rebreather, you do get a moist breath from the chemical reaction, but you'll be diving longer, so you'll still dehydrate. And another weird thing, and this isn't so cool, is, of course, with a rebreather, you sit for 5 hours with your mouth partially open with a mouthpiece in, and you drool constantly into the loop. And so after a rebreather dive, you can clean out with 3/4 or half a litre of drool and spit out of the rebreather that's collected over the previous 2 or 3 hours. And that also dehydrates you.
Exactly.
That's actually interesting. How do you clean the loop then? Because obviously that amount of bacteria, I can imagine that to be leading to a lot of mold.
Well, firstly, I tell my recreational students that I bottle it and put it into their mask defog. But of course, we don't do that. So you clean it out, and then we use a disinfectant solution like a stearamine or a chemgene or a food-safe, breathable disinfectant, so HDL, high level disinfectant. We clean the rebreather with that, and then we have to let it dry properly. Obviously, they're like generally black, dark components that stay moist and warm. So internally, they can be absolutely disgusting if you leave them. And we've had various different, things, people having like double lung transplant from breathing the spores from inside their rebreathers. So it's a big part of the training to learn to clean your rebreather properly, learn to air it out properly. Of course, you've got this black loop, which is moist and warm. If you accidentally leave it open, there's all kinds of stories of cockroaches, scorpions, all kinds of stuff crawling inside your rebreather as well that you then take on the dive with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maintenance is a big part of looking after your rebreather.
Yeah, I remember cockroaches have this thing. In the Philippines, it was a huge problem because the cockroaches like to eat silicone. And you would just leave a mask in the like dive set and it would just get nibbled away.
In a mode is in Indo, you always shake out your boots, right? You never know what's inside your boot is.
Oh yeah, so let's continue with other pet peeves. Here's mine. Boots. Hate them. Will, if I can avoid in any way, will not wear. So disgusting.
Yeah, I feel the same.
I agree as well. Luckily, we don't use them in freediving, but I know the feeling, yeah.
When I was a recreation instructor, obviously working full time, like 5 to 6 dives a day in Egypt, the back of my ankles would just wear out. The boots would rub against my ankles and you'd have this like open wound on the back of your foot that in the moist, humid air would never, ever recover. And so you'd go for months and months and months on end with like various different plasters. Then you try wearing socks underneath. And, the wetsuit boot was the stinkiest, mankiest thing you could put on your feet. No matter how much you try and dry them, they never dry. So, yeah, I remember my wetsuit boot days and I'm glad they're over.
Yeah, even that room, you worked in a dive center in Egypt. So if you go in that room in the morning where the wetsuit boots are stored, the wetsuit room is bad, but that room, ooh.
Yeah, there's like a
because it's also so
fog.
hard to get them. Yeah, and to get them properly dry. Ooh.
Yeah.
That is my biggest. Out of anything, boots is one thing I will dive barefoot rather.
So yeah, we've had the technical diving pet peeve. We've had the free diving. Sorry, the swim pet peeve. What about free diving? What's the biggest drama for free divers?
I think one of the it's kind of a love and hate relationship. Some people like to dive with a nose clip, and some people don't. A good fitting nose clip, in theory, it's good, but it's not easy to have one. So sometimes they leak. And imagine the only duty of this little device is to pinch your nose for you to equalize without using your hands. And if you're equalizing and it's leaking a little bit of an air every time, or it starts to move towards the tip of your nose every time you equalize, it just drives you crazy. And sometimes you just think like, okay, it's not going to happen. I will just go all in. And at some meters down, it just slips away. It just goes off. And then you see the bubbles in front of you. That's the end of the dive, right?
Do you have them like tethered to the mask or something, or if it falls off, it's gone?
But there's a leash. You put it on your neck.
Okay.
So even if it's gone, you don't lose it. But this is kind of like either the pads of the nose clip are either kind of this, how do you call it? Like silicone, or the old style ones are kind of a fabric which you put under the legs of the desks, not to make the squeaky noise. So it's either like that or that. But doesn't matter which type of fabric or material you have, because of the grease on your nose. Like if you do not clean them regularly, and what I mean regularly is not at the end of every session, in between the dives, sometimes it just becomes slippery.
I've just had a revelation. I just realized that, I've noticed in the past some masks have ripples on the nose so you can grab it with your fingers so it doesn't, slip off when you're trying to pinch and equalize. I wonder if freediving masks all have the little ripples on the nose so the nose clip stays on. It never occurred to me.
Yeah, but the mask and the nose clip, you don't use it like that. It's kind of tricky because if you want the nose clip to work 100%, you have to pinch it hard. Then this means that you will not be able to equalize the mask. There are certain attempts to overcome that. Nose clip pads with a little spring inside. So when you push hard, It just relaxes and releases a little bit of an air. The real ones are quite hardcore. You pinch it and it seals the nose, nostrils shut. So you don't use a mask, actually. You either use a swimming goggle with water inside or nothing on your face. But at the end of the day, who needs to see while freediving? You know, free divers look
Nothing to
inside, scuba divers look outside. That's what they say.
Okay. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
I
find
guess.
one of the hardest things I find with the nose clip specifically is when you use reef safe sunscreen. That one, they're very greasy and very oily. I've not found a solution.
No, it's funny, especially during freediving competitions where every bit of air is precious, you know, sealing the nose clip tight is important. And you'll see people rubbing their nose on freediving buoys, on the rash guard of the judge of the event. So you see people, you know, like a crazy cat scratching the nose everywhere just to keep it dry and clean.
And so that's super interesting. When you put the nose clip on, then do you end up with like divers tan? You know, how divers end up with a suntan on their head or their hands because they've been in their wetsuit. Do you end up with like
Yeah.
like goggles and nose clip tan if you've been waiting on the surface as a free diver? Is that like you end up with tan lines?
The freediving tan is with the mask tan is like extremely popular, of course, but with the white nose and just the goggle tan is not so much. It's not comfortable, to be honest. You know, you just put it on before you start the dive, and right after you surface, you take it off. That's
okay.
it. Yeah.
As where mask tan is a sign of a good freediver, no? Isn't that a little bit of a rite of passage in freediving?
That's a big thing in Asia. Many people don't like it. So they dive like ninjas. They have the full face masks. They cover super heavy duty sunscreens, gloves. They protect themselves. Yeah.
Can look quite scary when you come across, because they've got like the little cutout here and then the cutout around the mask and like a black full-on balaclava essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just diving. Okay, now we've talked about our pet peeves. Now let's get a little bit more into the things we can't go without. Our absolute favorites, pieces of equipment we will not go without on any dive. Adam.
A favorite piece of equipment I can't go without. There's so many. Obviously, we have a lot of equipment.
Of course.
like breathing gas. That's something you definitely can't go without.
That's it.
Like,
That's it.
Definitely helps, but like can't go without in terms of like what do I love? I think probably heated undergarments. I do a lot of cold water diving, and so heated gloves, heated socks, heated undersuit, that makes life so much more comfortable. If you're diving in like one of the mines in Sweden or you're diving in the Baltic Sea, you're doing extended dives, then you can't be getting cold. It affects your blood shunt, so all of the blood will start to pool to your core. That affects your decompression risk. And so being able to be warm is really important. We have all these heated garments now, active heating we call it, and they're becoming more and more popular. We need to make sure people use them in the right way, because if you turn them on during the start of the dive, then you'll on-gas effectively. And if it fails during the dive or your dry suit floods, etc., then you're going to off-gas slower. So you can cause yourself a problem if they're not used correctly. But used in the right way, I think they're the best. There's nothing better than arriving a little bit chilly to some deco, press a button, and then suddenly you start to warm up again. That's like one of the nicest feelings in the world.
That's so awesome. And I think the technology has come quite far now, right? In the last few years, they're becoming a little bit more affordable. I remember when I did my first dry suit course, there was only really vests and it was so expensive.
Yeah, they've got a lot better, and now you can get vests you can wear under wetsuits as well. So you can have wet versions. They're much more, let's say, affordable and easier to use. So you can get some with like wireless controllers that you put on your arm now and stuff as well. So there's less faffing around. So yeah, they're becoming more and more popular to give people more comfortable dives. There was a big statistic a few years ago that around 80% of open water divers that drop out, they drop out of diving because they weren't comfortable during their training. And so if we can make people more comfortable, then that's going to be a bonus to keeping people in the sport.
I agree. Yeah.
So Memo, what's your one must-have piece of equipment?
I think
Not so many options for you.
Yeah, but it's a spare mask. So freediving gives you the chance to continue your session. Even if you don't have fins, there's something to do. Even if you don't have your wetsuit, there's always something to do. But if you don't have your mask, options are limited. And it's quite common to see people acting a little bit sloppy on the boat or on the shore. So I've seen plenty of masks getting broken in my days of freediving. So I like to travel with a spare mask. That's my, best friend, just in case.
Yeah.
You think people say that about technical diving? Obviously, we've got redundancy, so you need to carry 2 of everything: 2 masks, 2 cutting devices, 2 SMBs. And so, we would normally assume I would have said something like that. But yeah, I didn't think about it for freediving as well. If you swim all the way out to the buoy, you get your session, you get yourself really settled, and you're comfortable, ready to dive, and you drop your mask or the strap breaks, then that's going to really dampen your day, right? So,
well, I mean that's gonna dampen everyone's day, because then you cannot be a buddy as well. That kills the session for everyone.
And where do you keep them? You keep them in the buoy, or you have like a pocket? What do you do with them?
It depends on the setup. If you have a boat nearby, just keep it in the boat. But if you do not have a shore entry, you can keep it in the buoy quite easily. Freediving buoys are big. It's kind of a massive storage. You have your water bottle there, spare equipment there, something you want to try there. And most of the time, people want to do a dive with the bifins and maybe with a monofin. The equipment you try to stuff inside the freediving buoy is probably 6 times more than what it can take. So we use these little lanyards, leashes, to attach this extra equipment. And the freediving buoy is, when you look from bottom top, it looks like a Christmas tree. It's always like a little bit extending here, a little bit extension here. Yeah. So, but yeah.
So you open your little, freediving suitcase on the surface, and you have all of your accoutrement inside. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like to carry an empty freediving buoy, just for storage. That's the best.
So Adam, you have to, but when you bring all your redundancies, right, you have to store them somehow. How do you, because you can clip them. How do you take all of that stuff?
Enormous pockets normally. So the thigh pockets are a really big part of what we do. And of course, as you imagine, we're that kind of people. So we have rules and regulations for what can go in each pocket, what pocket order you put things in. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff in pockets. You can do things like hiding stuff up the back plate, attaching things to the back plate, attaching things to the various different harness positions. And so yeah, you can expect to take like 25 to 35 pieces of equipment on a technical dive, and that's excluding regulators and cylinders. That's just like backup stuff and cutting devices, whistles, surface floats, decompression tables, wet notes, all that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
I think this is the only reason why I'm not a technical diver. I mean, I would really like it, but I don't think I could handle the admin. I don't think my brain could handle the admin.
And sometimes you carry a book or something to read during these extended deco stops, right?
Yeah, some of the long deco people will take, like, you've seen like the Dive Volk or Easy Dive phone cases. You put your phone in the case. You can go down, sit in the deco, watch a film, or you can actually, get waterproof books, or, quite often we'll get our wet notes out and we'll play like noughts and crosses or Sudoku or whatever, actually underwater to just pass the time. So yeah, there's tablets you can take underwater, phones you can take underwater, all that kind of stuff now. A lot of people try and avoid it though. A lot of people go underwater to avoid their phone. So, you get 20, 30 minutes of deco where you can just sort of zone out, which is also nice.
Yeah, nice.
Corinna, what about you? What about swim mermaiding? What's the thing you can't live without?
Well, for me, especially because I teach swimming, right? The one thing I keep on going back to, and the one thing I actually never leave for any trip, is it scuba diving, is it swimming, is it mermaid without, is my wetsuit pants. I might very often not bring the top, so from the freediving wetsuit, the pants. For swim teaching, they've become such an amazing piece of helpful equipment, because first, most pools that we teach swimming in, they like kind of this deep, chest deep, which this is how far the wetsuit pants usually come. And trying to demonstrate, especially swim moves, if you are not fully buoyant, so a lot of people have got a bit more sinky legs. If you want to demonstrate nice and slowly in swimming, having flotation on your legs and warmth is just one of these things that people didn't think about before, but are so amazing. So you can really do slow demonstration. Otherwise, in swimming, you can't do slow demonstrations because you need the momentum to keep you up. So those are the ones that I will not leave without. They're also quite warm because they're open cell inside. I use the ones with nylon on the outside, so they're a little bit more harder wearing. And a mask, obviously, but Memo already took that one.
Wetsuit pants. So I didn't think about them from that perspective. I always assumed they went as the full set. So that's an interesting way to use them.
I just bring the pants. And I mean, now also for mermaids, especially 2-piece wetsuits can be really nice, but you get the ones, I know Aqualung has a really nice one where you have a zip up jacket, and that one's really great for mermaids because mermaids, very often we do like photo shoots or video shoots and it's freezing cold, but you can't wear a full wetsuit because that just doesn't work with the tail. It doesn't work with other things. But wearing the jacket in between that you can easily put on and off, and then still your face stays intact, your hair, everything doesn't get affected like with the hooded tops would. Also super helpful, super beautiful.
That's an interesting thing. And so, you'll keep it on for a little bit of training and stuff and keeping yourself warm on the surface and then take it off, do the underwater stuff you want to do. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Awesome. Now we have another topic, and that's maybe the difference between Memo and Adam. We're talking minimalist versus maximalist. I think this is, and looking at it from just a regular scuba diver point of view, right? Not XR now specific or freediving, just a regular scuba diver on a boat. There's really 2 types. There's the ones who carry minimal equipment, nice and sleek. That's me. And then there's the ones that we like to maybe sometimes describe as the Christmas tree diver. That has
they look like they tripped and fell into the dive shop. Fell into the dive shop and everything got stuck.
Well, I do have to say they're very good for the industry.
They're good for business, but that I think that goes also on my pet peeves list. The shakers, those things drive me insane. Like or banging clips on a tank. I'm like, no, we came here for silence. Leave us alone. So not those things. But yeah, you've seen a lot of divers who think that more gear makes you better. It's never the case. It's never the case. You should take what you need. Anything that you think you might need, you need to take, of course. But if you don't need it, leave it at home. Keeping yourself streamlined is good for the environment. It's good for your air consumption. It's definitely good for like entanglement hazards. So the less the better in terms of recreational diving. Going to a nice streamlined configuration is happening more and more now. People are moving away from the traditional jacket style BCs to a backplate harness and a wing that gives them nice clipping positions. We have shorts now you put over wetsuits so you can add things into your pocket, which means you don't have all the danglies. So if you do want to take an extra something, maybe a mirror for the surface signaling, then you would have a nice place to store that now. So yeah, recreational diving is also starting to move on a lot from those kind of Christmas tree divers to divers that are much more streamlined.
That is actually a topic I find really interesting because I've also actively seen it in a lot of dive centers. Dive centers are moving to the back plates, which I think is genius because now you don't need to order so many different sizes. And in general, even myself, since I've had a backplate, I don't enjoy BCs anymore, like the regular jacket BCs. I just don't. It feels weird. I like it to be minimal.
They definitely have a place. I think if you're teaching try scuba to really new divers and they want to spend a bit of time on the surface being comfortable, then something that lifts them from under the arms and they can sort of sit in it isn't a bad thing. But if you're learning to dive properly, you're doing your open water training, then you want something that's as custom as possible that fits you. The clips are in the place where you're going to get muscle memory. We've made it so that it's not moving around on your body. Of course, everybody's different body shapes. So we can make it fit properly, and that puts the buoyancy in the right place so that you're going to move into that diving position as early as possible. That means you get used to doing things like keeping your head back, keeping your feet up, which is good for air consumption, good for your buoyancy control, it's good for the environment. It has all number of benefits. And so we're seeing more and more people either going into perfect buoyancy training or going into foundations training after their open water to learn that equipment. Or like you say, Corinna, doing it as part of their open water training. More and more dive centers are doing that. So yeah, it's a fantastic thing for the environment, for the industry and for the diver.
I think the environmental point is super interesting also because people don't realize it, right? Because, this BC, it's a BC and I'm going to throw it away when it's broken. But the cool thing about a harness and backplate is that if the bladder's broken, you can just exchange the bladder, keep the backplate, you can just change the webbing, and whatever that exact piece that is broken, you only need to change one piece.
Yeah, they're very modular. And so if you want to upgrade to twin set diving later, you just change the wing, but you can keep the harness in the back plate. If you want to add more adjustment points, you can add them. If you want to add more clips, you can add them. The webbing is like, seatbelt material. It never really breaks, so it'll last you your entire career. The back plate is steel or aluminium or carbon fiber, which lasts forever. And so they're all highly recyclable materials, number one. And number two is, if you only buy in once, if you buy a BC, a standard jacket style BCD, and then you buy a wing, well, of course, you're putting two sets of equipment into the environment eventually. Where if you start with a backplate harness and wing from the beginning, they're highly recyclable and they last the entire career. So from an environmental standpoint, it's the best way to go.
Memo, how about maximalist freedivers? Because it sounds like it's not a thing, but I feel it actually is.
No, it is actually. I think it comes with the amount of time you spend in the water. If you are training regularly, then you kind of cool down a little bit and develop a proper understanding of what to train, when to train in the water, or what to practice, right? So you just bring enough equipment to focus on what you really want to achieve. But if you are not training regularly, then comes a point you get one weekend off and you want to do everything. This is the guy who has a mesh bag behind himself, piling up everything as much as possible with some spare equipment or the new toys that he purchased, throughout the season. So of course, it's good, like they should play with their toys, but from training point of view, it dilutes the session a little bit. It's the better approach is to focus on what you want to do during that session. And also a session is not only for yourself, it's you and your body. So when you are diving for yourself, do what you want to do. But when your body is diving, you have to be fully ready for the safety, which means that you have to use your bifins and be there for your partner in the water. But it can be super minimalist, depending on the discipline you are training. For example, free immersion, where you do your dive pulling through the dive line, all the way down, all the way up. You don't need fins. You can have your mask, wetsuits, weight system, and a lanyard. Basically, that's it. So you don't need too much of an equipment. You can be like really easy on the equipment. But if you want to do everything in one go, then comes the additional trailer.
Is freediving with a DPV as cool as it looks?
It is. Actually, it is quite fun. I personally like it a lot, but I also find it a little bit tricky if there is no proper briefing or instruction given to the user. It's fast, and people should understand that equalization is no joke, right? You have to understand your limits. You cannot go super fast all the way down vertical if you cannot equalize. So you cannot extend your bottom times during this kind of device, because there is 1 in a million chance that maybe it breaks down. So you have to stay within your limits, and you have to be ready to complete your ascent with your physical capability. Otherwise, you may find yourself in a very awkward position. That will be the adventure of your life. Yeah.
We're getting this way with diving generally. And we see the same thing with a rebreather. So the rebreather is much more capable than the diver. The rebreather will continue to go for 9 to 10 hours without any problems.
Yeah.
If you're going into a cave, it will keep you going for 9 or 10 hours into the cave. No problem. But the minute it stops working, well, now it's all about you. And so
exactly. Yeah.
This is where, technology is great, but I think it can push the diver to places where they're not super comfortable or safe in a very easy way. Before you realize that you're a long way into a cave, or you're a very long way deep with the rebreather, with a scooter the same. People get a long way from the dive site and then scooter floods. And now you're dragging a 50-kilo weight around with you. And you've got to swim all the way back. And so I think, training is really important, and, some kind of backup or redundancy is important.
Yeah. Let me, I 100% agree with your words. Equipment is more capable than the diver itself. And just this year, there are 2 agencies organizing world championships in the world of freediving. In one of them, the head of safety was using a scooter to do deep safety. In our programs, we do not recommend doing safety over 25 meters because also the safety diver is a diver. We are not Superman repeating this dive at a decent skill and
Who's the
quality all the
safety for the
time.
safety, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So the head of safety was meeting the divers around 50 meters or so, apparently. After repeating the same dive multiple times, he got also DCS, which is not so easy in freediving, but the equipment makes it possible quite easily, or let's call it like relatively easy. So we are bone and flesh. Equipment is equipment. We have to be, we have to know
Mindful and
ourselves.
respectful, right?
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the same thing in recreational diving with the advent of computers and the computers getting more and more, capable. People pushing their NDLs, trying to, use nitrox to get the maximum amount of dives. Now people understand gradient factors, so they're kind of changing the conservatism level to give themselves more dive for their money, which is a good thing. But I think we also need to remember that technology is sort of like, it's an enabler, but we don't want it to enable us to fall into our own traps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Agreed. Now let's get a little bit more into some gear. And the next thing I want to talk about is personal gear success stories. Is there one piece of equipment that has changed the way you dive, or that has changed maybe Adam, was there a piece of equipment that made you become more technical? Is there anything where you think this is my gear success story?
Well, I don't know about personal, but like in terms of technical diving, the rebreather is it. That is the the ultimate advent of technical diving. We were always limited by the number of cylinders you could carry. And so, we can carry 12, 15 cylinders. You can put them on a line and put 25 cylinders on a line, but it's very complicated.
You look like an underwater dragon.
Yeah. And some of these things take multiple days of setup to get done properly, and then you're praying that the regulators are still working, that nobody swam past and borrowed a cylinder during the night. So open circuit is great, but for deeper diving, we're seeing it disappear now. With the cost of helium being so expensive, we're now in a position where, more than 100-meter diving on open circuit just really doesn't happen anymore. So if you want to go deep, people are diving with a rebreather. It gives you access to a huge amount of gas. We can take a 3-liter cylinder, and we can take that small cylinder and do a 9-hour dive, where previously that would have been, potentially 10 cylinders, 10, 11-liter cylinders. So it's a huge amount of gas saving. With a rebreather, you still need to take open circuit generally, so that if the rebreather fails, you can come home, but you're only going one direction. So you're not doing the bottom time and you're not doing the descent. So you're only carrying enough gas to do one part, which is the ascent and the decompression, which helps. We also are moving into a new technological dimension with bailout rebreathers as well, which means if your primary rebreather fails, you go to a second rebreather via open circuit. So there's some other protocols involved, but generally we're now in the place where we're taking 2 devices to potentially do longer durations or more penetration into an overhead environment or deeper dives. And so that's been the absolute, massive involvement of diving. We're still not at the limits of the units. The units will, like we said earlier, the units will go much further than the divers are prepared to go. And so because of that, we have now opened up an unlimited space really for technical diving. It's just a case of protocol, safety, good teamwork, and practice, making sure that the people are experienced enough to do the dives. And then they're pretty much unlimited for technical diving now.
I think the development of rebreathers is so cool because you can actually see that there's companies actively developing new types of equipment. I'm actually really curious how in future this will kind of swap over a little bit into recreational diving. Because one thing you said the other day really stuck with me is how anything that you guys in XR develop that works really well kind of gets moved over to us recreational divers.
Yeah, so obviously, I'm pushed to as the head of technical diving for SSI to increase the numbers of divers to give programs that people want to do to make it more popular. And whenever it becomes popular, the recreational team just steal it and say, "Oh, nitrox, that was a technical thing. Oh, everybody wants to do nitrox, and now it becomes recreational." The same with the gas blending. The gas blending was always technical. We'll steal that. Now decompression diving, that's now a recreational program. DPVs, that was a technical tool. Now that's a recreational tool. And so, yeah, we're like, I like to think we're like Formula One, we're the cutting edge development end of the sport, which is probably a little bit of arrogance actually. But we definitely, we still have innovation happening. We still have explorers in our side of the sport, people doing stuff that is relatively extreme. I've got to always be mindful to tell people that's not what we do. Divers, technical divers in training agencies, technical divers that go diving for fun, that's not exploration. An explorer is somebody completely different. You need a different mindset. You don't need agency training. You need team training that you do yourself. So it's something completely different to what we do. A little bit like freediving. The super deep guys who push themselves, that's not really our base. We give people all the tools to start, but once you're into this kind of extreme stuff, then you do that by experience rather than through a training agency. So from a technical diving standpoint, we keep creating cool stuff. We've got manufacturers every year bringing out new and interesting pieces of equipment and new and exciting safety developments to make diving safer. And it's crossing over. The Mares Horizon is a recreational rebreather by Mares that's a really interesting way of going diving. You can use nitrox to just extend your dive time. And for most divers, they'll get about a 12x efficiency on their breathing. So if a cylinder lasts them, let's say 3 hours, then they're going to get 12x out of the same amount of gas. So you get a huge efficiency from gas saving. It uses nitrox. So all of the things that people are scared about with the rebreather, which is basically it gives you oxygen at depth, that can't happen on a horizon. It can only give you nitrox, and you're at a depth where you can breathe that nitrox anyway. So the horizon's got none of the complications of, let's say, a CCR, closed circuit rebreather, but all of the benefits. So it's very quiet to dive. You've got very good buoyancy control. You've got huge gas duration. You get very close to the wildlife. A lot of the benefits with very few of the costs, and it's about half the price of a CCR or less. So as they become more popular, we'll be able to reduce the cost. If we can reduce the cost, which is the biggest barrier to entry, because diving, it's easier than diving open circuit, actually. If we can reduce the barrier to entry, which is just the cost, then I think there's a good chance that rebreathers will end up more mainstream. Maybe don't take away ever from open circuit, because I think people still go back to this, the fact that they want the purest form of what we do, but they will definitely become more main.
Interesting.
How about yourself, Memo? Is there any piece of equipment that you think makes a difference in freediving?
I think, of course, if you're thinking about the performance of a freediver, the number one fetish item is a good pair of bifins. Everyone wants to get their bifins, which are carbon fiber, which are the most expensive, which are sometimes the longest, or whatever. So whatever appeals to you, you just want that item, and you want to make it your baby in the water. For me, what matters most in a bifin, or any fin actually, is the size of the foot pockets, the shoes. Using slightly tighter shoes or really tight shoes make the real difference, because you can deliver the energy to the blade super easily. And over the years, industry saw this need, and now we have different options from different manufacturers, which are giving really nice fitting shoes, foot pockets, sometimes with some inserts to fill the gaps between your feet and the foot pocket, and giving you different angles to attach the blade. Not everyone has the same ankle flexibility. So in freediving, we technically want to make the blade of the fin parallel to your shin to catch the ideal propulsion position. So if you are like a ballerina, if you have flexible ankles, you can dive with a stiff plank. That would be okay for you. But an average man usually doesn't have ankles like that. So you need to have angles between the shoe and the blade. And lately we are seeing like high angled fins hitting the market, different designs of foot pockets getting more popular. And I think these things made the real difference in the last 10 years of freediving. We can see bifin freedivers doing almost as maybe better dives than the freedivers of monofin freedivers 10 years ago. So the technology improved a lot. My assumption, in the next 10 years, we are going to see the same kind of technical approach to wetsuits. Because when you look into the swimming world, now the tech suits of swimming, competitive tech suits, are giving different levels of compression, different levels of, it's kind of like physio bands, you know? It makes your body align in a certain way because they don't stretch the other way around. I think this kind of technology will be embedded in freediving gear very soon. So people using this equipment will naturally fin with the proper alignment, will naturally, able to stretch their arms better forward. So this kind of stuff will become easier and we will see the effect in the results for sure. But I'm not saying they are going to be more comfortable. Tech equipment is usually torturous, like the swimming suits. Tech swimsuits, you need at least 10 minutes to put them on. It's something. Yeah.
What about you, Corinna? What do you think? What do you think's the biggest development or the best thing?
So for me, obviously my main thing is teaching swim, right? Developing swim teacher programs. And we work with the entryest of entry level, like babies and 3-year-old swimmers, people that learn to swim, learn to survive in the water. And it might sound silly, one of the most successful pieces of equipment we have is this thing called a large barbell. It looks like a barbell for weight training, but it has 2 big pieces of foam with just a plastic PVC pipe in between. And that piece of equipment can teach 3-year-olds to swim faster, gives them confidence and independence than anything else I've seen, like pool noodles, nothing even close, or kickboard. So it's such a simple, basic piece of equipment that actually comes from water fitness. But the entry of everything in SSI we do essentially, because kids need to swim and love the water, it gives them this immediate independence and enjoyment in the water that just nothing else I've used in the past has done. That's just such a simple, tiny piece of equipment that makes a huge difference. And everywhere I teach swim teachers around the world, or I get people to become SSI swim teachers instead of whatever they've been doing before, they all react the same to that simple, basic piece of equipment.
How do you use that? How does it work?
So in the first step, they will just put it under the arms and they do like a basic scoop and kick and pull, we call it. And it gives them immediate independence because it's quite stable on the water surface. So if a 3-year-old, for example, uses it, but we also use it with adults, but they are immediately, even though they have nothing on them equipment-wise, they immediately can move by themselves they can choose to get their face wet or not. And then we move it further where we move it away so they can learn how to get their face underwater. And yeah, it's pretty versatile. It's not the most streamlined of equipments, but that is something that comes later. But for the entry level of swimmers,
it's a teaching aid, right? Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. And and I think about recreational diving. I think one of the biggest game changers in recreational diving has been dive computers. We started with dive computers a long time ago, but now they've become so accessible that every diver I see now, who's diving regularly, they have a dive computer, and they're using it to its full advantage to get longer dives. Especially now we have smart apps and we have multi-sport watches, and then being able to connect your dive computer to technology. So share your dives, log dives. I think that's also been a huge game changer for recreational diving. Is the internet connectivity of social media with diving. That's become the biggest thing in recreational diving in the last sort of 10 years. So yeah, for recreational diving, it's got to be computers, I think. Do you guys agree?
100%. 100%. There's not even anything. I mean, the biggest development before that was probably a regulator, because that's the steps. That's regulator, then dive computer, in between. Yeah, BCs and all of that, but you can use very primitive versions of all of those things. But those 2 pieces you can't really work without.
No, not anymore. No, you do.
Especially the apps coming to the new smartwatches make it so accessible and easy to use as well.
Yeah, like the new Mares app is on your Apple Watch, and we've got smart apps on Garmin and stuff like that, where people could just rock up to their dive center and they're not necessarily a diver, and say, "Would you like to try scuba?" "Oh yeah, hang on, I've got an app for that," and they can just bump, and they immediately got the little dive computer and they can log their one dive they did. That's a super good way of introducing people to the sport. They can then share that on their, their rings or on their activity app, whatever they're doing, that they've done it. And of course, yeah, it's a super cool way. One of the things I don't know if many people know is you get a lot of calorie burn for scuba diving. Scuba diving gives like the same calorie burn as running on a treadmill at a decent speed. So scuba diving is pretty cool from a calorie burn point of view. What about freediving, Memo? Did people track calorie burn in freediving?
Yeah, they do. You can average, of course, like it depends on your fitness level and how regular you are in freediving. But for a beginner, you can roughly say 1,000 calorie for an hour. It's big,
Yes, and that's just getting in the suit, right?
Half of it, at least. Getting in and out. 500 for sure, yeah.
I'm thinking that since I was young, since I started and first learned the statistics about how many calories you burn, I don't understand why not more people create like a scuba diving weight loss liverboard. Probably because food on liverboards is so good.
Yeah, well, you'd literally roll out of bed and eat, and then roll into the water and then eat, and then roll back into the water, then roll out of the water and eat. So yeah, it would have to be a very minimalist, like regimented boot camp type liverboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exercise opens the appetite. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about gear success stories. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is gear rage stories. Any piece of equipment that has ruined dives for you, ruined everything, ruined a whole trip. I know, Adam, you carry everything 2 to 5 times, so probably not that bad. But I'm sure there was a time where you didn't.
Of course, and I make mistakes like everybody else. I've done some really stupid things. I loaded the car with multiple rebreathers, with multiple bailout cylinders, picked up all my friends, drove 13 hours to France, arrived at the cave, took out my rebreather, carried all my stages one by one down to the water, got out, put my rebreather, assembled my rebreather, and realized the loop, which is the bit you actually breathe from, is in England.
It
is. You can't believe it. You can't believe how disappointing that kind of thing is. Or, because what we do is quite often heavily equipment intensive. So you can pack all your gear, get on a flight. Like in June, I'm headed to Bikini Atoll. So Bikini Atoll, I'm going to fly London, Tokyo, stay overnight in Tokyo, fly Tokyo, Guam. And then I get on an island hopper from Guam that stops at 4 different islands before I arrive in Kalajuan. And then I'm going to get on a boat for around 11 to 12 hours before I arrive at the dive site. So like 3.5 days to get there. Now, 3.5 days, multiple flights, multiple airlines, 5 to 6 luggage. The chance of everything
and the loop
arriving
is missing.
And your
working condition and my luck with luggage. Yeah, you can imagine we only need to be missing a couple of important things and it can be really a disaster. So yeah, those kind of rage stories are the worst. But also, things not working as intended. Those kind of things kind of get you quite annoyed, especially when it comes to something that's you and your team are all relying on. So when we do a lot of cave diving, lights. Your primary light, of course, we have backups, but you don't want to dive with your backups. So if your primary light fails, you're only going to use the backup lights to get out. But that primary light you're so used to because we do all of our communication with it. It's how we interact with the environment. It's how we see where we're going. It's how we sort of enjoy the dive. If that thing fails and you're on your second primary light, which is not your main one, you've got, you've still got your backups, but you've got taken somebody else's primary light or another one that you're not so familiar with. It really kind of makes the dive not so enjoyable. And so I think having the absolute stuff that you're comfortable with is the biggest problem. So all of my big peeves will come from not having that.
How about yourself, Memo?
I think my biggest hate stories are all about wetsuits. Imagine the Adam story, but, converted to freediving. You pack everything for that event, that competition you want to join all the way across the world. You go down there, you get ready, and on the day of the training, the first day of training, when you're putting the wetsuit on, you just become a little bit too anxious and go easy on the loop. And what happens is a ripped up wetsuit. So, it kind of ruins the whole trip. You kind of look for a wetsuit glue to repair it, But then no one likes to wear this wetsuit with a Frankenstein scar on it, you know? Like it just kills the joy. I had a couple of stories like that. It really makes you feel like,
Yeah,
I
and
don't
it's
want to
probably
do that.
worse.
Yeah.
It's probably worse than his Memo because, you know, you guys have done maybe months of preparation to build yourself up for that competition or that dive or whatever you've been doing as well. So it could be like, it's not just the week of preparation we've done. You guys have done multiple build-ups to that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking it serious, for sure,
Yeah.
people get ready. Like, it's not possible to keep yourself on the peak all year round or 6 months constantly. It's not possible. So you have to define your targets, or maybe you have 3 or 4 events you want to join throughout the year, and you kind of try to peak out just at that event and then cool down a little bit, peak out again, catching the next event, cool down again. Otherwise, you burn yourself. It's called overtraining. It starts affecting your psychology. Doesn't matter what you eat, what you drink. You start feeling depressed. Life starts to feel miserable, you know?
Okay. Yeah, not good. What about you,
Yeah,
Corinna?
not at all.
I think from a diving perspective, probably coming back to what you said earlier, dry suits. Just like a little hole in the seal, something. Now you wet. Now you in a lake, freezing cold, you know, bottom of the lake, always 4 degrees. Just not fun. But then from a swimming point of view, it's always goggles.
Yeah.
Goggles, and finding goggles that fit is one of the hardest things. The amount of like bruises. Sometimes if I wear goggles too long, I look like I've been punched in the face because I like bruise here because I've got a really strong bone here. So
You turn
fitting
into a
goggles.
panda bear all the time, wearing the wrong goggle. Yeah.
Is there a technique, you know, like when you put a mask on, you suck it against your face, check for a seal? Is there a technique for fitting goggles, or you just work out, do they damage my face and then change to a new pair?
Very similar, actually. It depends. Racing goggles very often don't even have a seal at all, but that is so uncomfortable. They kind of need to fit within the eye bone. So they need to be inside. So the skin here basically makes the seal. So it's actually just a piece of plastic. As where the goggles that a normal person would use with the seal, you can actually do very similar what you do with diving with a mask. You just put them on and like kind of squish them. I always tell the kids, if it farts, it fits. Because it makes like a
Yeah.
Then they actually they fit, and then you can also feel if they put pressure anyway. But yeah, finding a right fit is so hard.
I'm going to come up with it. We've got an interesting one for recreational scuba actually about peeves. It's probably a little bit on the edge, but dive guides who don't want to do long dives. That's a really annoying thing, right? Dive guides who don't want to do night dives and dive guides who want to get out of the water at 60 minutes. That's an annoying part of recreational diving. You know, if you've got that little bit of extra gas, you're still at, 70, 80 bars, and the dive guide's like, oh, let's go back to the boat. I'm like, no, let's carry on enjoying ourselves a little bit. So that's a little bit of a peeve for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. As way, unpopular opinion, I enjoy a good 45-minute dive.
Oof.
Sweet spot.
Are you just ready to get to the buffet on the liveaboard? Is that the point?
Probably.
That's it.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's something about liveaboard food though, no?
Ooh.
Is it because you burn so many calories and you're just so hungry?
Absolutely.
I think we got through everything nicely today. I think this was a really fun episode for us.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
definitely will have another one or two gear episodes in future.
I think there's quite a lot to talk for the future as well.
More pet peeves.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear some other people's stories as well. So that'd be a super cool thing for the future.
Yeah, so anybody, wherever you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, you can comment, you can leave show notes, put your pet peeves so we can discuss them in future. What are your biggest pet peeves when it comes to other divers, equipment, just the things that sit behind your ear and just itch, you know?
Exactly. Inspire us to talk about them. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you as always, Memo Adam. And we'll hear you in the next one.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Great session.
Thank
See you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.